Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and call this meeting to order at 6:39 p.m. This is the regularly scheduled May board meeting. Arlene said that she had already checked to make sure she could see everybody and hear everybody, right, Paul? Or Arlene, you're on here.
Yes.
Arlene,
Okay.
Are you good? Okay, so
Yes.
all five are
Yes, I did.
on. Okay.
Yes.
All right, so at this time, we will do a moment of
Yes.
silence. And now the pledge. I'm gonna let my student lead the pledge for me. Stand right there. You can see yourself right there. Stand up. Start the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the
Republic.
for which it stands,
One nation,
One nation,
under God,
under God,
indivisible, for
indivisible,
liberty and
liberty
justice
and
for all.
justice for all.
Good job. Thank you, buddy. All right, you can go play now.
Good job.
Okay. Item number 1, review of the agenda.
Ashley, before you do that, this is Brian Thomas. You might want to go ahead and put on the record that this is being done. Our meeting is being done under the Google Meet because of the governor's order, which was Executive Order 2020-215, and the Attorney General's opinion, OAG 20-05, is that while this pandemic is going on, they have excused having to have a primary physical location for the video conference, and that we are carrying out this meeting in accordance with both the governor's executive order and the opinion of the Attorney General.
Thank you, Brian. Okay, now review the agenda. And if any changes or anything need to be made, not adoption of the agenda.
I'll move to adopt agenda as presented.
All right, motion by Mr. Peridot.
I'll second that.
Okay, second by Mr. Heisel. Okay, roll call vote. District 1,
Yay.
District 2,
Yes.
3,
Yes.
4,
Yes.
and District 5 is yes. Motion carries 5-0. Item number 3, approval of minutes for April 20th, 2020 regular meeting and April 23, 2020 special meeting. Any questions or comments?
Move to approve as written.
If not, anybody would like to make a motion?
I'll second.
Motion by Mr. Peridot. Second by Ms. Richardson. All right. District 1,
Yes.
District 2,
Yes.
District 3,
Yes.
District 4.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0. Student and staff recognition. Mr. Christie.
We have some students to recognize this evening. We had 10 students, 8 from Campbell and 2 from GRC, that were successful at the STLP State Championship, which was held online this year due to the COVID-19. The STLP is a year-long statewide program where students plan, design, and create projects that use technology to impact the community, assist peers and teachers, and solve problems. And that's coming in real useful during these times right now. Campbell's biggest winner was Madeline Settles, who won first in the state for her screen capture tutorial on customizing your Google home screen. Riley Reed, Caleb Bush, Priya Patel, and the Bedheads team of Joby Mittmesser, Christian Eisen, Ryan Jackson, Clay Turley, all advanced to the state competition's final round, which is a huge accomplishment for us as well to have that many in it. GRC had 2 students recognized at the state competition. That was Sydney Parton and Kennedy Parton, both who received awards for the Blogger Chorus category. All of the students are or were members of Miss DeMonica Parton's STLP class at Campbell Junior High. Certificates have already been given to the students and to their teachers, so congratulations to those students and teacher. Thank you.
Paul, if you don't mind, I'd also like to just recognize the folks that were involved last night. And when I was put together with the baccalaureate service, I thought that was very good. And I appreciate everybody who was involved in that. Mr. Boland, appreciate you coordinating that in your intro and your closing comments.
Yes, I agree with both of you, and congratulations to those students, and I agree with Mr. Heisel. And with that being said, I think we do have one that is signed in for public comments that I really, really appreciate right now. Her and another group have been working nonstop to make this as special for our senior class as they possibly can given the circumstances. So Miss Heather Pinchett, are you on?
I am. Can you hear me?
We can.
Good. I am so grateful that you all let me join you for a few minutes tonight. I want to start by saying that after 2 traditional graduation ceremonies with my oldest boys, last time I was in front of you all, we were asking for more tickets and we were worried about where it was going to be and how many people we could bring. And there's a part of me that really has enjoyed the festivities that were held at GRC for my youngest son's graduation. So I want to say a huge thank you to everybody involved. It was extremely well organized. There was a very calming and reassurance there when we came in. And it was very intimate and personal. And there were so many things about it that I actually liked better than the traditional ceremony. And after speaking to friends and family in other locations, I realized how extremely lucky we were that the Board of Education and David Boland and GRC went out of their way to provide us the service that we received. So I just want to say a huge, huge round of applause to everybody that was involved in that, because it really was a great day. It went extremely well. Now, I was towards the end on Friday, so Wednesday may have had some kinks, but by Friday it was beautiful. And I expect that the finished product is going to be more than we could have ever hoped for. So a huge thank you to all of you all for that. I've had a conversation with Mr. Boland since then, and I've expressed that to him, but I want all of you all to know that as a parent, we couldn't have been happier considering the circumstances. The real reason I asked to come in tonight, though, is if you haven't followed the fundraiser that I organized on Facebook and the committee that I put together, I invite you to do that. I'm kind of naturally a problem solver. I like to try to make things better. And when I saw that we weren't going to come back to school and they weren't going to get prom and Project Grad, I decided to see what we could do to make it special for them. My initial phone call was to Ashley Ritchie and Paul Christie and David Boland. I reached out to all 3 of them to make sure that I could have their blessing in moving forward. And I'm super grateful that they all supported me in my plans. So from there, I did organize a committee with 5 other senior moms, and we started our fundraiser. The point behind what we were trying to do was to find a way to take Project Graduation and make it more doable, since that was going to be taken off the table, and to award the kids with prizes and goodies and just show them a little special attention each week for the month of May. I'm happy to say that we've been extremely successful. We've raised a little over $15,000 in cash. We've raised over $7,500 in actual donated goods that we have been raffling and giving to the children. And we have secured a meal or some type of free meal ticket for them to get each week. We're distributing these goodie bags, swag bags, as some of them are calling them, once a week. And they get some type of gift or item along with snacks, treats, and then we have like a 4-for-4 coupon to Wendy's, free sandwiches from Arby's, Jimmy John's, different places. So we had a great amount of support come in from the community, from local businesses, and we're still receiving gifts even as today. And on Friday, when we gave away the bags at GRC, we had parents writing checks, and we had people stop by and drop off donations during that time. One of the biggest supporters we've had has been L8, and they came to us and made a special offer. We had gone to them asking for sodas to give away. They told us we could have as many L8s as we wanted. We got some items from their gift shop to give to the kids, some little car coasters, key rings, different things. But then they came back to us and they said, you know, we'd like to make a special label. So if you haven't followed this on Facebook or you haven't heard about it from the kids, originally, I don't know if you can see this. This is originally one of the L8 labels they gave us. And it's custom, says George Rogers Clark High School, class of 2020. The L8 has a little graduation cap on it. This is the first time L8's ever done a specific label like this for a small group. And they originally told us they were going to give us 355 of these, one for each senior. When we went to pick up the L8s a couple days before they gave them away, Fielding Rogers decided he didn't like the red label on the green bottle, so they switched it to cherry. So the green ones are even rarer now. We only have 6 of those. I asked for a little favor to show our gratitude to you all, and I asked if I could get 12 extra, and they were kind enough to do that. So the next time that I can come by the Board of Education, or if I see you out, I want you all to know that Paul Christie and each representative from the 5 districts, and David Bolin has given me the list of him and his staff, including Ms. Hoffman and the other assistant principals. Each of you will be receiving one of these special edition Cherry GRC class of 2020 L8s. As our way of saying thank you, we appreciate your support. I'm so glad that everybody jumped on board and quickly said, go for it, we trust you, run with it. They've allowed us to use the school parking lot. Mr. Bolin and his staff have been extremely supportive. They go up, they set up tables for us. The resource officers have directed traffic, and they've done an auto call out to the kids, and they've given us everything that we've asked for. And as a parent, as a community member, I could not be prouder to be a part of this class in Winchester right now. So I appreciate it very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Heather.
Ms. Pinchette, this is Scott Heisel. I want to also say thank you. You've done a great job with this, and I really appreciate it on behalf of our students. It's been great.
Thank you. It's been extremely difficult work. It's taken a lot of hours. Just to give recognition to those that have helped, Miss Jeannie Gwynn has been my partner in crime, as I call her, for a lot of things. She's kind of my right hand. Ashley Smith, Missy Helderman, Jennifer Lyle, and Tawana Palmer are the other 4 members of the committee. And it truly has been like a second full-time job, but it is by far the most rewarding work we've ever done. The kids came through Friday for their bags, and I would say 95% of them all gave us a special thank you. They told us, I wish I could get out and give you a hug. They've been so extremely appreciative, and they've had the best manners, and we just couldn't be happier about that. In addition to those bags, we are doing a raffle every week as well. We just went on a shopping spree today and spent $2,500 of the money we've raised to do a raffle on Wednesday. So if you don't watch us when we go live on Facebook, I encourage you to come join us, because we have a lot of fun giving away those big gifts and giving the kids the prizes.
Well, thank you so much, Heather, and thank you for coming on tonight. I know it was a little strange when I had to change things up on you mid-afternoon, but we do
Okay, I'm
appreciate
living
it.
on
Thank you
Zoom
so
these
much.
days.
Yeah. Well, we appreciate the bottles and thank you for thinking of us. And I have been keeping up with you on Facebook. You all have been busy constantly, and I appreciate you all keeping us in the loop and being so transparent. It's been great. It's been great for the kids. It's been great watching everything, and we truly do appreciate you all.
Thank you so much. I'll drop a carton off at the Board of Education, and I'll drop a carton off with Mr. Boland. So thanks so much.
Thank you.
All right.
Okay. Item number 4, consider approval of employment of teachers with emergency certification for the 2020-2021 school year.
Did we not have someone at the school board office? Have they gone?
No, there was no way on it signed up. I had to.
No, it was Heather signed in.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Excuse the interruption.
No, you're fine. She had requested because she wanted to make sure everybody got their outlays and that you all knew you would be getting them.
Justin is there at central office with the lobby open in case anybody else wanted to sign in, and he said there was no one else that had signed in.
Okay, so item number 4, Mr. Christie.
Item number 4 is to request approval of employment of teachers with emergency certifications for the 2020-21 school year. This is something that we do every year. This generally just ends up being substitute teachers. However, there could be some possibly this year whose certifications don't get signed off by ESPB because of the situation we're in. We've already received directions from KDE that they'll be given an emergency certification. So our intent with this was to do nothing more than we've ever done. It would just certify substitute teachers.
There was no document in our packet, so nothing to consider there.
There was not one. It's like I said, same thing we do each year. I don't know, Scarlett's on here. I don't think there's any documentation to it. It just needs to reflect in the board minutes that you all gave approval to employ. It's primarily substitute teachers.
Okay.
Any more questions, comments, or would anybody like to make a motion?
Make a motion to approve item 4 as written.
All right, motion by Mr. Talby. Okay, I'll second that. District 1,
Yes.
District 2,
Yes.
District 3,
Yes.
District 4,
Yes.
District 5 is yes, so motion passes 5-0. Item number 5, consider approval of salary schedules and athletic salary schedules. Ms. Ellis and Mr. Christie.
Go ahead, Alicia.
Okay, these are pretty much exactly the same as what our current physical year is. The only thing that has changed, as you would have seen on the certified additional salary schedule, there's actually 2 of those now. One says hired prior to July 2020, meaning anyone in that current position would fall on that schedule with the days and indexes. And anyone hired July 1 and after, which is the other side, would fall under those days and indexes. So we've changed a couple of job descriptions and days and indexes. Are there any questions?
Yeah, I have a question. Last year on the athletic services, there was a district AD. Are we not including a district AD for this coming year?
Yes, we are. It's actually on district supplemental schedule, which is not being presented tonight. They'll be presented in June, all those extra services. It was taken off of that because that's strictly GRC stipends and Campbell's stipends. And the district AD really is not part of GRC per se, it's the district. And so we moved that to a different schedule, but you will see that in June. That amount has not changed, or that position has not changed.
Okay, that makes sense. Okay, thank you.
Uh-huh.
If I could just ask a clarification question. So on the prior to July 1 and July 1 and after, is that hired into the district or essentially selected for that position? So if we have a current employee that in August is selected as, let's say, a principal, that's what you mean by that, hired into that position,
Into
right?
that position, correct, sir.
And any of the others that you see that may have changed, those were ones that were brought to you on job descriptions before we ever made this change on the salary schedule.
I do have a question on Mr. Christie's thought process when it's my turn.
I'd say it's your turn.
Okay, well, I didn't want to step on anyone else's feet. So it looks like this before and after July 1st has the biggest impact, if I'm reading it correctly, on the high school principals. Have you had a chance to compare what those indexes look like in our surrounding competing for personnel districts?
That's one of the reasons for going in to look at those. They were kind of out of line. And one of the problems that we had, of course, again, this does not affect anybody currently employed. One of the problems was that you had assistant principals that were higher paid than most of your principals, with the exception of the high school principal and a large portion of your director's position. So there was no incentive for anyone to come out of a high school assistant principalship, and there was no place for them to go financially. And so this kind of lines it back out. And we did look at some other districts as we were doing this to be a little more in comparison there. But again, it does not affect anybody currently employed.
Scott, you're muted if you're talking to us.
I'm sorry. So I went back, I did a spot check 10 years ago, and it looks like the indexes have been this way for at least the last 10 years. So it would be a pretty substantial change to make that. And I suppose my concern is that we wouldn't be able to attract candidates by reducing that, and those are pretty critical positions.
Scott, were you waiting on a reply from Mr. Christie?
I was looking at those. I think with the number of extended days and the indexes where they are, that's pretty competitive. I mean, even at the elementary levels, of course, those indexes at much lower rates. Just for a principalship at Concrete, we had 20 applicants. So
I just want to make sure we're not selling ourselves short or tying our hands on getting good applicants for those positions, because they certainly are critical and difficult jobs to do.
I understand that. And my biggest concern was that of the assistant principals at the high school, where they were, like I said, they were at or above district level positions and above all other principals in the district, with the exception of the high school. It left no room for them to grow in the district. They had to actually either come to a top level position at central office or leave our district before they could get any kind of an increase in their salaries. And I was just looking at ways to be conservative on the salary schedule. If that's, if you all so desire, we can certainly discuss it.
I guess from my part, Paul, I agree with Mr. Heisel on many of those comments there. But anytime, I just feel like when we start changing salaries significantly, like what they've been done with assistant principals, Phoenix Academy principal, that the board should have a little bit more time to discuss this rather than just at a meeting, especially in the time and day that we are right now. I know it's tough to get discussions together, but those are some pretty significant type changes of which that would be good to have to think and discuss about for a while.
We can table this piece if you like till we meet again next week for the budget. I mean, it can be put on at the same time that or it could be put on at the same time that we bring the district extra duty stipend schedule. It could come back then, even in June. We just need these in place by start of July.
Speaking of next week, we'll be meeting in person next week since groups of 10 starting Friday can get together.
I think that would be up to you all. I would probably make the auditorium the meeting room because we're better able to spread out in that room a little bit more so than we would be in the boardroom around that one board table.
Paul and I had discussed it earlier, and I think we were kind of waiting to see where I'm sure many of you seen the news where some of the strikes that happened in Clark County with some employees at the nursing home and stuff like that. So we were kind of waiting to see what was going to happen this week before we made that decision.
Okay, because I agree with Mr. Peridot, Mr. Heisel. I think I'm in favor of tabling this until either next week or a later meeting.
Okay. You want to make that motion, Bill? Or are you making a motion?
Yeah, I'll make a motion to table this item. I forgot what item number it was.
Number 5.
Item 5.
Yes.
Table item 5 is written for a later meeting.
Motion by Mr. Tawby.
I'll second that.
Second by Mr. Heisel. All those in favor? District 1,
Yes.
2,
Yes.
3,
Yes.
4.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0. All right, item number 6, consider approval of escrow of carry forward 2019-2020. Ms. Ellis.
This is brought to you every year with the request from each school. There is a printout per school saying what amount they are requesting and what they plan to do with that amount. The total is $76,274.43 as the request is, but that will come down to what actually is put in and actually carry forward will be based on June 30. I'll pull a report of what they actually end the year with, and we will not carry forward more than this amount, but it may not be this exact amount. But this $76,000 will be what is put in the budget as a carry forward balance if it is approved tonight.
Any questions for Ms. Ellis? Okay. As I say, Gordy, I see you unmuted.
Yeah, I just have a couple of comments, I guess, and a couple of questions, and I'll just throw it all out there and Paul can answer it all together, I guess. Just a couple of comments. Some of these carryovers are pretty significant. And I think it is important to note that Section 6 funds are year-to-year funds that are to be spent on the students within that year. And I know we went through a pretty big thing where we missed 2.5 months or whatever, but I would like to make sure that somebody is monitoring those things and looking to see, because, if you carry over a great deal of money the next year, you think that's good, but also somebody's kid didn't get the benefit of that money as well. The other thing, I really wasn't clear on Strode Station about how much money they were carrying over. And I was really caught by surprise about them being responsible for paying for the flood damage that was in the school. I don't understand. I mean, I know my memory is a little bad, and that's been a couple years ago, but I don't know if something came along, but I don't understand how the school would have had to pay their Section 6 monies to repair flood damage during that time, and us as a board not step in there, especially when you're considering it's a $21,000 bill and considering the funds that we have versus the funds that the school has. So just comment on those if you would, Paul.
I want to check on that. I'm not aware that they paid that. There was an insurance reimbursement on that. That when Donald's on here, he might have some knowledge as to how much the reimbursement check was, but I'm not aware that they paid $21,000 for any flood damages. I'd have to do a little more research, and I've not found that part in here yet where that was listed. I see it now.
I can make a comment to that, sir.
Okay.
They created POs from their Section 6 to get those items ordered more quickly because they knew what they wanted to replace it with. We were waiting on that reimbursement. As soon as that reimbursement check came, their Section 6 funds were reimbursed for the full amount of the insurance that we got.
That's what I thought also.
Yeah, I guess I understand that, but I guess maybe the communication at that time may not have been as well, because it looks to me, according to the letter, that they had to go the complete year without being able to spend out of their Section 6 money. I'm not sure what happened, and we can't really go back and rehash old things, but when we're relying on insurance money, sometimes those wheels don't go real quick, and we may have done all of it in good faith, but at the same time, if they weren't allowed to order during that time, that puts a principal in a school in a pretty big detriment at that time, because it did look like that they were delayed, several months, like it might have been the spring before they did get that reimbursement.
And I don't have that in front of me, what the timeline on that was. I don't recall right off. And again, Alicia, if you've got information on when that insurance checks did come in, I don't recall it being.
I'll have to look up the exact dates. I don't have that in front of me right now.
But I think Mr. Peridot makes a good point. Going forward, it seems like this should be a district level responsibility to deal with this cash flow issue on something like that.
Yeah, it does say in there it was the beginning of May when they received that. So I'm not sure if there was a communication breakdown somewhere between school, central office, or something along those lines. But, just for future reference, I don't think the school should have to carry that kind of burden for that long. And I feel bad being on the board at that time. And I know there's 3 members on here right now that were here at that time, and I'm sure all 3 of those would have been more than happy to make sure that we took care of the school. I understand about them using the Section 6 to hurry up and get it done. But I think somehow we could have stepped in there. And again, I don't want to rehash something that happened 2 years ago, but let's just keep that in mind for future reference.
If you notice, and there's also a lot of the schools that carry over the request is going toward technology. In your updates that I sent you today, there's a technology request that we'll need to talk about some more, that part of our initiative for next year, especially if it appears that we're going to go down the road that we're in now of having to start school similarly to the way we're ending school this year. a way to move forward to be a 1-to-1 from third grade up. So some of these costs that they're asking to carry over here could possibly be offset by some of the plan, the technology plan that's in that update that I sent you today.
In that plan, Paul, didn't you specify that there were federal funds that were coming in to help us with that
Yeah.
as well?
Yes, there's a total of about, at least we know about 1.5 at this point in time. But if they're requesting here for carryover for Chromebooks and technology, and we know we have COVID recovery money that can be used toward this, and that's 2 fund sources there that maybe that this carryover wouldn't have to be used toward that. We could use the grant monies that we're getting to make that and save that part of the Section 6 money for something else. I did note that in a lot of these, they were asking for technology for Chromebooks. And we have a plan and a cost, district-wide cost to get us 1-to-1 from third grade forward.
Is anybody you know working on orders or anything at this time? I'm not sure if money's been released to you, but you've got to figure that every district in this state is going to be trying to do the same thing.
Exactly. Well, Justin they've been talking with them, but now we've not come close to any kind of orders yet. And I don't know that anybody else had. I'm not sure how far out they are on those. I know there's going to be we're close as it is. Well, we could move some computers around and be close to that. But we're looking at a plan that would put computers in hands that could be used for nothing but take-home computers. And then they could bring them into school and use them at school also, but they're primarily for take-home computers. But no, I have not spoken with Justin as to how far out we would be on if we were to order 250 Chromebooks today, what that time frame would be.
I don't know what Justin can put together, but I think myself as a board member, I would be looking to go forward with that if we had to commit something right now, maybe in next week's meeting. I'm not sure where he's at, but I've got to feel like that a lot of people are going to be wanting these Chromebooks during this time, and that may be a tough thing to come in August.
Yeah, I actually had a meeting, a couple of my staff and I had a meeting last week on Thursday, and the proposal I sent to Mr. Christie to give to you all is for about 870 Lenovo Chromebooks. And so I spoke with the Lenovo rep, and they said because of the demand you talked about, they're looking at 6 to 7 week turnaround to get them that number processed, set up, and distributed to us. And because it's such a large number, they're actually going with like a third-party group that they use out of Ohio, which is also doing the warranty for us. So we actually get them a little quicker, believe it or not, than if we had just gotten them straight from Lenovo. So, but we're looking at about a 7 week turnaround. In the past, we've gotten Chromebooks and they haven't been pre-set up for us, what they call quote unquote white glove. And so that's why it's going to take a little longer, but it'll save us setup time in the long run because they'll be a little more ready to go right out of the box.
So, Mr. Christie, you alluded to the fact that we're now we're planning, and I know we got a plan that we were planning to start the year like we ended.
No, that's just.
But KSBA, KSBA's recommended 3 different approaches. So, I think we need to some point start discussing that, maybe next week or if we can. I don't know if you have any more input on that, but I know I've had several parents want to know what our plan is. And the only thing I can say is we haven't discussed that yet.
That was just one of the plans, was starting back the way that we are now. Another one which on our last meeting this last week, kind of among superintendents along with the commissioner, kind of was talked down that it's going to be very difficult. It's a July start. That doesn't appear that that's going to be possible. So that kind of eliminates one of the 3. The other one was, their recommendation was if you maybe start a little bit later, say close after that 24th, but we're looking at coming back, either fully coming back for everybody, and what we would have to put in place for that to happen, whether it be masks, temperature checks, all those things. That's still under discussion. Or there's what they call a limited full return, which means you would only come back with, say, 50% of your student population. We would have to we're looking at working alternate schedules and way to disinfect the building during the week and rotate those, which affects your transportation and your food services too. And then the third option was a later start, the possibility of a later start to be sometime in October or mid to later October possibly.
Well, I thought it was after Labor Day. I have September start.
The last that I looked at, and when we read on ours, it was October, an October start. That was the
Okay.
second one. That was kind of what they're calling a regular start. I think most everybody is going to go from that mid-October to that 24th, that third Monday of the month, because what that does is by the law that gets you, by past law that gets you past the having to be in school for 170 days, it puts you back to the 1,062 hours. Now we can go longer than that. But, so we've got calendars that we're looking at for all three of those type scenarios that'll be presented to you. In fact, I'll get those sent out to you. We've got them on paper, what that would look like right now and how many hours you could get and how far toward the end of May that would take you next year without any snow days or anything on all three of those calendars. I'm hopeful that, this week there'll be some more, direction as to what that start back's going to look like. There's a lot of difference in making a plan for coming back even in late August with full student body or a comeback that involves only 50% of your student body. So those are very detailed, and hopefully we can get some more direction on kind of where that's going to be going. Talking about today, they were talking that we can expect that this contact tracing to last at least 7 months. If that's the case and you have a case in school, that could affect a lot of folks. We're also looking at a possibility of, for those medically fragile students, getting something out. We're putting a list together of those students, which were at least 250 of those students that I would suspect that if we did come back in an August start, those parents of those medically fragile students may not be comfortable. So we're looking at a plan of what we could do with those with some virtual classrooms. Again, some of the money that we're getting on these grants for the COVID, some of that money would probably need to be made available to do some sort of teaching, a teacher to do that. But of course, if we come back in with limited numbers, then there could be some staff. We could be overstaffed because of the number of students that come back. So we're kind of, right now, we're hoping to get some more information so we can start to nail down one of these. It's very difficult to make that 6 different plans that you've got to come up with. And some of them are, I think at this point, could be somewhat realistic, and some of them at this point aren't even realistic to even talk about those things right now. So we do have the schedules, the calendars. I'll get those emailed to you tomorrow. Of course, we have a calendar in place. You have passed the calendar. So any changes to the calendar will be done by you. It's not a calendar committee at this point. The board will make the changes on the calendar from the way it is right now.
Okay.
So we'll get those to you. But again, you're going to see 3 calendars. And if you ask me which one are we going to do, I don't know. We've got to start making plans working toward all 3 possibilities. Hopefully, as we go another week or so, they'll start to eliminate some of those possibilities, which narrows down the focus, and we can start a little more detailed planning. Very difficult situation right now.
But to tie these discussions together, if we think there's a reasonable possibility that we'll need Chromebooks and NTI available in any scenario, then I believe Mr. Peridot has a good suggestion that perhaps we need to go ahead and make that decision now so we don't find ourselves in the toilet paper scenario that everybody was in, that all of a sudden there'll be a big rush and we'll, the state of Kentucky will try to get 8,000 Chromebooks in every other state and they won't be there. So I think that's a good comment to give consideration to potentially putting that forward.
If you look at that technology plan, you can see how many it is. You can see the plan of how many there are as far as additionals for any that might become damaged or not usable. There's a certain percentage of overage there to cover those while those repairs are being made. The insurance plan is in there with 0 deductible. We know what that cost would be according to today's or yesterday's costs, Friday's cost. When the cost was put to this, $240,870. I'm ready to move forward with that because whether we're in this situation or not, the ability to be at a 1-to-1 ratio opens up a lot of other opportunities at our schools to do other work. And I think this whole COVID thing is going to change the face of education, and we're going to start to see more of this online learning. So this puts us probably where we need to be. So I'm
Paul,
ready. to
you
move
and I
forward.
had talked before, I know, but there will also be a way to make it to where kids with like out here where I'm at, I have tough time with internet access. With these, if we have to use the computers and stuff like that, will there be a way for these kids to get internet?
Yes, and I'll let Justin speak to that. He can speak to the technical stuff more, but yes, they would have the possibility of getting some internet access. And there's also the possibility with these that we download work on thumb drives, load it to those computers, and then those computers come back and that work can be offloaded and new work can be put on. So there are ways, but if Justin, if you want to step in and speak to that, go ahead.
Yeah, well, the only issue right now, well, there's several issues, but one of the main ones is that it's hard to put a price on a cost on what solution we're going to go with. Because what happened in our first round of this COVID and NTI is lots of internet companies, service ISPs. They will they made great deals. And they offered, 60 days free so-and-so. And we don't know if that's going to happen if the same plan is in place, the same situation is in place in August, September. So it's hard to put a cost on it. And it's also kind of hard to, like you said, everybody lives in a different spot. So hotspots are an option, and some of the federal funding will take care of hotspots. But if you're in an area way out in the boonies, whether you have a hotspot or not, if the hotspot can't get reception, you're going to have you're going to have issues. So we've talked about hotspots. We've talked about, as Mr. Christie said, uploading and offloading onto Chromebooks. We also talked a little bit about outward-facing wireless access points, where essentially our school becomes, or several of our schools become a big hotspot where students can pull up, or their families can pull up in the parking lot, get the information they need using our Wi-Fi network and our filters, and then return to their houses. But like I said, there's the computer order, the 270,000 or 240,000, whatever it was. That's very quantifiable. But right now, the way to get internet isn't as quantifiable. But trust me, we are looking at options and looking at everything out there and getting pricing. And there's just a lot up in the air right now. But things are doable. But it's just going to take a little bit of time still.
So Jason, does the Chromebooks have a USB drive?
Yeah. I think all of them that we order now have at least one USB-A drive or older type.
When I'm using, I don't see one, so I just want to make sure. I guess one of the thought processes, or I'm not sure who mentioned this before, but being able to put study, put the programs, put the students' programs on a thumb drive and download them to the Chromebook. So I just want to make sure that the Chromebooks have USB ports.
Yeah, that'll be something that we make sure is a possibility. But you probably only have USB-C ports on yours, which probably means it's maybe a little newer Chromebook. But we would be sure to order something that would have that capability on it.
Okay, thanks.
My other question, Paul, would it not be, I know you said we got to make the decision as far as the calendar and all that, but is it not something with all these different options being thrown different directions that you may want to call the calendar committee back together just to get opinions from people in the schools and stuff like that, parents?
I don't think he heard you.
I was wondering if anybody did. That
No.
or he's not unmuted. Paul, are you unmuted?
I heard you, Ashley.
I think he got knocked off. All right. Well, you have an answer for me, Scott?
Yeah, definitely maybe.
Well, we've lost Paul all the way around. We're going to have to wait for him to come back.
Actually, I think it definitely, we're going to have to make this a item on an agenda, as Mr. Talby said. I mean, we started out on escrow and we've got pretty deep into the calendar here right now. And I think we're going to have to make sure that we get this item as a discussion item on our next meeting. And you know, I'm not saying, I'd say the most far-fetched plan I've seen is the July plan, but you take, you know, you're getting close to the 1st of June. If anybody want to consider
Right.
July, we better get something. I
Exactly.
think this needs to be a discussion item on an agenda somewhere.
Well, that's what I'm kind of thinking with all this. I don't want to bog down the budget meeting agenda either, is do we need to call a special meeting for just this stuff?
Sorry about that. I'm back. Can you hear me?
Okay. Yes, but
Sorry.
you're blurry.
Sorry about that.
Going back to actually what you said, I thoroughly believe that we could use, you know, a special meeting for a discussion, and also to get this, if we got the answers on ordering the Chromebooks, to go ahead and jump on that as quick as possible.
Okay. I agree with you, Gordy. Okay, so. Paul, are you still there?
Yes.
We're talking about, because we're getting off track, and Gordy's right, I've let it get off track, but, you know, I'd asked you about if it got out of, if, with all these options that are coming out at us, would it not be beneficial to call a calendar committee back together?
Well, part of the KD's plan is to put a committee of folks together to make recommendations to you, and we're looking at putting that group together. We've got a meeting scheduled this week. It'll look at things like, what would it be if we came back 50%? It would be all those kinds of things. And so, yes, we're putting a group together, and on that would be administrators, central office, teachers. I don't mind. We'd be glad to have a couple board members if you all want to sit on the front part of it. There'll also be representation from the health department in case there are stipulations still at that time that we have to meet certain criteria by CDC and health department. So there would be somebody on that group to look at the schedules that we're putting together.
Okay. Well, I think what we kind of, while you were knocked off, is we need to have another meeting instead of bogging down the budget meeting to put the Chromebooks and the calendar, you know, this stuff on that meeting.
Okay.
Just so we can, and start moving on it and figuring out what we're going to do to have answers. And then, I know we're talking about the escrow, but I also received a question from a parent just now. If how, you said this about the medically fragile kids, how will a person know if they qualify for that, or do they need to get in touch with you all at central office, or will you all be making contact with them?
We're going to make contact with the ones that we already have listed in Infant Campus that we know have medical issues that are listed,
Okay.
medically fragile students, and that's how we're compiling the list. Now, the question is going to be, how far from there do you go? If someone has a diagnosed severe respiratory illness, and how does
This
that
one would
compare
be-
to someone who has seasonal allergies? Or how
Right.
far do you make this allowable for someone to receive their education at home? You know, that's the part that we'll look at with health department, and probably have to get guidance on KD on where those cutoffs can be.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify for that parent. Okay, back to item number 6. Would anybody like to make a motion, or is there any more questions on item number 6?
Well, I'd like to go back to my first question was what was the amount that the
Sorry,
substation was asking for? I didn't have that. I wasn't real clear exactly what figure that was. So if Alicia has that, or Paul.
I have in the calculation, hold on, I had it in front of me just a second ago. $29,500 is the top number. But it most likely will not be that amount of money once they do some more POs before the year ends. But as of this request date, that's where she was sitting at.
And that's all Section 6 money.
Yes. And she had a very large carry forward into this year as well from the prior year.
Right. I'm assuming that was from the insurance that she had
Right.
that year. So, okay, they'll have a fun time ordering.
I know she is one that had, was talking about ordering, was at least considering ordering, more, Chromebooks. That was big on her list. I was just looking, I had a text from her just a few minutes ago, and I don't see it now, but it was, they were telling her it was going to be sometime in June, probably and she ordered right now. We need to, whenever we do discuss, we need to probably schedule this work session to talk about this as quickly as possible, because I think it's going to change what a lot of the schools do. If we move forward with this technology plan to go to a 1-to-1 from 3rd grade forward, this is going to change what a lot of these schools are looking to use this Section 6 money for right now.
Ms. Ritchie, I'll go ahead and move to approve the item as written, and then we can move on there.
I'll second.
Thank you. All right, motion by Mr. Peridot, second by Mr. Tawby. District 1.
Yes.
District 2.
Yes.
District 3.
Yes.
District 4.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0. Item number 7, consider approval of change order 17-9 with Green Mechanical Construction for the George Rogers Clark High School Gymnasium and Athletic Field Project, VG 16-238, in the amount of $50,649.60. Mr. Christie and Donald Stump.
I met with WMU. We're going to receive a check back from them on this particular change order in the amount of $16,400 as a refund back for any labor, anything that they put into this. That leaves the amount that you see on the change order at this time. And I'm looking at the wrong one. And I also have online with us tonight is John Hagan. Codell, if you have any questions on that, but this was the amount. I did review the paperwork. The fees from WMU have not changed from day one. In fact, they were a little bit less because when this project started, we were looking at 2 lines coming in, and they priced to the construction or our mechanical engineers on the construction project the price that it would be for a 3 and a 4 inch line. We ended up going with a 2 and a 3 inch line, which reduced it down to the price that you see in front of you. Green Mechanical has already paid this. They're just asking for this as a change order to reimburse them because this is in and above what they paid from the $25,000 allowance. But in that amount, like I said, I've met with WMU's board. They're going to refund to us $16,400. Now that amount that they refund to us can go back into the construction fund. You could deduct that from this. I'll ask John Hagan to speak to that. I'm assuming John's, I haven't seen his name. Okay.
I'm here, yes, sir. Yeah, that refund, I'm not sure exactly how they determined the $16,000 figure, but that money could go back into contingency or not. I mean, my understanding is it's just a reimbursement to you. You could use it for whatever you wanted.
That's correct. And the $16,400 was all of their labor costs for coming out for their inspection costs. They went back all those costs out and anything where they were on site we had been billed for, and that's where they come up with the $16,400.
Paul, I appreciate you working with WMU on that. I know last time we discussed it, there was kind of a dark cloud over that situation. It certainly sounds like the research I saw was half of their fees were already in the schedule. They could have been discovered if one wanted to take the time to do it, and it sounds like they're being very fair with their labor. So I think that black cloud over WMU has potentially been removed now.
If you approve this change order, obviously it would come out of the contingency fund on the project is where this is coming from. And then it could be the 16,000, like John said, the 16,400 that WMU is submitting back to us, that could go back into this contingency. If you put it back in the contingency, then it could only be used if it's money left over on the next capital project. If it goes back into a general fund, then it can be used any way you see fit.
Have we not received this yet? Oh,
Alicia, has that check come in yet? When I met with them a week or so ago, they were directing their payroll person to issue the check, and I'm not sure that we've
I
received.
have not seen a check for this yet, no.
but they've got their $50,000 and had that for a while, because Green Mechanical paid this quite a while ago.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Yeah, it was paid back, prior to occupancy of the building, so back around the first of the year. Of course, this also involves the football stadium as well, so it's both buildings.
I would rather leave the money as flexible as possible. That's just my thought. I'm not sure what other board members want to do.
So you would prefer for it to go in the general fund, Mr. Peridot?
I think I would rather it go in there. I think, we got building projects coming up that we could easily go back and get that, but I just think, that way it gives us an option to do more things with. But that's, I guess if you go ahead and say you're going to put it in a building, you've already gone ahead and said, we're going to commit that back to the building. But, I'm not sure that I would fight either way, but I just always like to have my money more flexible.
Is the dispensation of that $16,400 part of this line item?
Yes, that 16,000, well, only if you decide to make it that way, if you could take the 16,400 that WMU's given us back and take that off this $50,649 and put it, and that would make it certainly the 50,000 come down, but you're still putting the same amount of $50,649 to it. So my recommendation was to pay the change order out of the contingency fund and get the check from WMU and put that in general fund. The work that was committed here, it's exactly as they priced it to the mechanicals, to the mechanical engineers on the start of the project. I've had copies of the letters from back in 2017 when they priced it.
Hey, Brian, are you, Mr. Thomas, are you on it? To me, it just seems odd to take money out of the construction fund and then we get a refund that's part of the construction fund or construction project, and we're going to take that money and put it in the general fund. I would think it all needs to flow back through the construction fund. But is there any reason why we couldn't put it in the general fund?
I think this money's been allocated for that particular project, isn't it, John Hagan?
The money coming back from WMU, not necessarily. I think that's just for lack of a better term, good faith from them. But the 50,000, yes, absolutely was part of this project. But the 16 coming back, I don't know that was necessarily tied to this project. Now, I also will say, unless you all decide to add scope to the project, there will not be any more need for contingency money on that job.
Bill, my answer then would be, let's look and see how WMU did that. If it's a discount based upon that, or if it's something else, we might be able to switch it to the general fund. Alicia and I would probably have to put our heads together to see what we've got going in there, but it may very well be able to go back to the general fund. Bill, good question.
Practically, I'm not sure we should get bogged down in it too much. We could run it back into the construction fund where perhaps it properly belongs. And then when we're done with all these projects, since we had so much general fund money in it, we could always roll general fund money back, much like what happened when we changed when we changed it around how we were going to handle the field. We had money go back to the general fund and we pulled it back again. I'm not sure we should get too bent out of shape or over the 16.4.
No, I'll take Mr. Thomas's advice and let the check come in, then then we or Mr. Christie can decide if it go back in the general, if we can put it in the general fund or if it has to go back into construction. But I'll make a motion to, if there's any other comments, I'll make a motion to approve item 7 as written. I was going to put an addition on it, but I don't think we should put an addition on it right now regarding the 16.4.
I'll second.
Motion by Mr. Tallby, second by Mr. Peridot. District 1,
Yes.
District 2,
Yes.
District 3,
Yes.
District 4.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0. Item number 8, consider approval of 2020 summer project proposal list. Mr. Christie. Did we lose him again?
No, I'm here. I was just looking at the agenda packet here. You have listed there, we've met with Mr. Stump and his group have met with principals. And at the district level, you'll see a printout of all the schools and their requests, what those are. They're broken down in several ways. You'll see 3 columns. There's an estimated cost of what it would be. Then you see a funding source. 2 funding source. One is for maintenance, one is for general fund. Those items listed under the general fund or under the maintenance would be paid out of our regular maintenance fund. Those are items that we could do and we can fund with money that's already been allocated to the maintenance department for this year. The funding source that says general fund, those would be items that we would need to look beyond what we can do in our regular budget. Those would be coming from the general fund. And at the last minute, just a few minutes before the board meeting started, we got the bids in on, or we got the quotes in on the asphalt. You'll see on the front, there's no, those are just estimated costs. And we have those costs now. Donald's on here. And I think at the bottom, they had an estimation of $275,000. I think that's probably a little bit high. We knew it would be a little bit high in the estimation. Those are the items. I don't have any problem doing the ones we have listed under maintenance, doing those and going right on with those. It's the ones under general fund that we would need some direction from you all as to what you would like to see done. And I'll answer any questions you might have about any of those. Most of them are pretty explanatory.
Do y'all think we're going to take these item by item? I just want to throw out a comment on the general projects that the estimated cost number didn't foot across. So the total estimated cost, if one was to approve everything on here, is $724,000.
That would be including the money that's already been allocated to general fund maintenance that we have in our general fund, or our general maintenance fund balance right now left to do that. So yes, the 2 added together would be 700 something.
Mr. Christie, just a question here. I see on there where we're going to be replacing some water fountains, just as a safety issue and what's going on now. How many bottle fill water stations do we have? And is there any talk of cutting off to where an individual can't use a water fountain, would have to use a bottle fill or something? I mean, we're talking about germs in schools.
Well, ideally, we'd like to have all of them bottle filled. The new ones that we've been putting in, those are bottle filled. Like at the baseball or at the field house and those places. There's some bottle fill stations at the high school, but that's about all we have of the bottle fill stations. So when we look to replace water fountains, we will replace them with bottle fill. There is no directive that you can no longer use these or anything like that. We're looking at some of the water fountain replacements. We were even looking at just going from the push button to the automated and that kind of thing too. So,
I mean, I don't know. I don't know the germ spread at a water fountain or anything else at all like that. Maybe that's for a health department question or something along those lines. But if that's an issue, then I think it would be good to have at least one bottle fill at every school.
I'm sure CDC Health Department, if they had their druthers, they would be bottle filled. There's no doubt about that. But you're talking about for school districts, that would be a tremendous expense to go through and change all of the fountains to bottle fields and things. So, but I think bottle filled, replacing one or two with bottle filled in each school, that's a possibility.
So how do y'all want to tackle this? Try to take a bite of the entire thing, or break it down to the components that were in the packet, like start with 8A and then go to 8B and et cetera? Well, I'll just start out with some questions on asphalt if we don't have any other further direction now. Paul, on the preschool, considering that the district facility plan is still, I guess that committee is just in suspension right now. Do you support spending $100,000 on those items?
No, sir. No, sir. I was trying to pull up the costs on each of the, and I don't see that on my phone here right off the top, trying to pull, here it is, paving quote. The actual cost of I know what we had estimated there, but at the preschool, McClure was without including the exit road, that amount came to $44,325. That's McClure.
So, Mr. Christie, these funds, are they general funds that we've already budgeted for, or are they coming out of contingency?
Well, yours, what I'm talking about for the general fund, would be coming out of contingency. The ones that are listed under the maintenance column, that's money that was budgeted last year during the budgeting process to the maintenance department that has not been spent this year.
But that's not listed on this, on the surfacing quote. I'm looking at the surfacing quote. That's not listed under maintenance or general funds.
That's
There's
one
nothing there.
that's going to fall totally from general fund.
Totally from contingency fund,
Yes.
because none of these items rose to the level of being sufficiently needed a year ago to be budgeted for.
Well, and if you think some of those should be, we can take some of the other things off that we've tried to pick off out of the maintenance. It's kind of, which ones, do you pick off? We just tried to look at the money that we thought we were going to have available in maintenance and tried to go through and pick out the ones that we could do to make that work out to spend that. You could take, say Campbell's gym floor, that we were looking to pay for that out of the maintenance department. That's $29,000. If rather than do that gym floor, you would rather we put asphalt somewhere, we can look at where that $29,000 out of maintenance fund could go toward asphalt, if you'd rather do that.
So you broke up a little bit when you answered my question on the $275,000 asphalt quote. Where's that money coming out of?
That would come from general fund contingency monies.
Okay.
Now, having said that, also realize that this year, because of the COVID issue, there are monies that did not get spent. Some of those things that you see from the bus garage, we could take the money saved on transportation costs, fuel costs, those type things, tires, maintenance, repairs, those kinds of things. We could take the money that was saved due to not using the school buses the remainder of this school year and could do some of that work with that and not touch maintenance or general fund. So there's a couple of three different ways to look at it. Or the money that's left over from transportation that didn't get used could go back into the contingency, but then you pull out of the contingency to do some of these items.
But we don't have a list of the items that we have saved and what that amounts to.
We gave
to transition that savings to another project.
I think I gave that to you at the last meeting. The monies that would be generated from each of the departments because of the COVID-19. I don't have that in front of me right now. Alicia, correct me, we did that, and I think I gave that out last meeting?
Yes, the last virtual meeting we had, it was part of that meeting of what the savings was thought to be at that point.
Okay, was that
On the topic of
all inclusive? I'm sorry, Scott. Is that all inclusive? I mean, was that savings for the entire year? I don't recall. I can go back and look.
That was savings that we knew that we felt that we were not going to spend because of looking at where we were in the fuel, what we had left in the fuel account, and we know we're not using but a minimal amount of fuel for the remainder of the year, and that's just to do our food services. So we backed that out, and the money that was left is money that's left in fuel costs. We knew the sub costs. We knew we're not going to have any more substitute teachers for the year, so we knew how much we'd save from that. So that's what we had given you the last time, and I don't have that right in front of me right now.
No, and every time I go off of the meeting, my computer like locks up. So I'm having a hard time pulling up other documents. So I apologize. I just looked up the totals, like transportation, like the cost savings prior was not broken down per department. It was just different line items as a district wide. But transportation, we just looked at that. They actually, in their current budget of like expenses, have not spent about $76,000 on what they normally would have bought, like fuel and tires and that sort of thing. So they have $76,000 they can commit to that list that they provided. They also have about another $50,000 that they would have typically paid drivers for field trips and extra service type work that has not occurred with school being out. With the students not in session physically. So your transportation alone is looking at about $126,000 they have available to spend on that list they gave you, if you want to do it by department. And then maintenance, he's got his broken down. He's looked at what his expenses are and looking at his budget. He has roughly $190,000 he's not spent at this point. And what they've got listed there is that 170. I don't have that number in front of me, 71,000 or something like that. So that's money already in the budget that would not come out of contingency that we could use.
On transportation dollars, how does what the state does in terms of the SEEK funding flow through that? Would this potentially be, we think we're saving money, but we might turn around and they would take money away from us next spring because we didn't run those miles?
There's been no conversation whatsoever about taking any money back from transportation or anything. Of course, they only fund us at about 52% anyway. So we were underfunded to begin with.
Well, if it took part of our 52% away, we'd have an impact to it.
There has been no conversation about that whatsoever, about taking anything back or not paying that. And the last conversation was it appeared as though that anything that was budgeted by the state this year, they would be meeting that budget this year. There was no talk of any expected cuts at this particular point in time. Now, I'm more worried about the cuts coming a year or two down the road.
That was pretty much indicated in those materials we got from the board association, was that they didn't anticipate any cuts on this year, but to really be leery of next year and the year after of what may be happen. Paul, going back to the servicing the blacktop, the number that we've got here, that's your all's estimate number, right?
And yes,
the actual estimate number.
We just got that in about 10 minutes before the board meeting, and I elected not to send that to you. I can email that to you guys right now if you'd like. This is quoted by a local paving company. Of course, we would have to bid it out, but we wanted more accurate numbers, so we had a paving company quote the work for us. So we've got more accurate numbers, and that would have to be bid because these folks that on the asphalt are not on the state bid list, so we would have to bid this out. But I'll send this to you as I'm sitting here right now. It's got it broken down.
What's their difference from what we estimate and what they estimate?
Donald, if you're on here, do you have the?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
The total of that estimated list is roughly 140,000, and that's also including 44,400 for the McClure site. So if you took out the 44,000 for the McClure site, we're at an estimate of around 95,000.
So we weren't real close on it.
And an
Bill,
additional funding source, if I could add, we're actually going to end the year with about $73,000 in capital funds that's going to roll into next year, which can be used on these blacktopping projects. And up and our debt service is going down next year. So there's going to be more capital funds available that could be used on these type of projects. In addition, you still need to keep in mind, we do have the facility committee and projects, BGs, things going on. So it's just kind of what the board wants to use the different funding sources on.
Mr. Christie, from my perspective, it seems like maybe we should go through this and you should describe what you think are, what you would grade as your top projects or your A projects for each one. We could circle those and maybe then tally up what you think those A top projects would cost us. Because if we just do it piece by piece, we might tally a pretty big number by the time we're done with it.
I will tell you that one thing that's very important that we look at is at the bus garage, the hydraulic leak on the lift, and that was an 18. It was an estimate. We had someone come in and quote us an estimate on that. It would be between $18,000 and $25,000, depending on where they found the leak and whether it was a pump replacement. But that's pumping. We're losing hydraulic fluids that if that gets into the dirt, we could find ourselves digging up a floor and replacing soils underneath there. So to me, that's a high priority, something that needs to be done. And I'm not sure where it is in here, if Donald even put it in. And Donald, you can chime in. The roof on central office is becoming very disconcerting. If you notice around where I sit and Arlene sits, you see the leak. That's an asbestos roof in there. All that interior is asbestos. If that starts to deteriorate to the point to where it starts to crumble, we're in a world of hurt. We can't do the work on that. We've repaired and chased leaks all over that roof. I would tell you something that I know is not on here is that of course, I know that Hannah McClure is probably, as a building, sometime in the near future may go away for us, but the only 3 buildings in our district where there's no fresh air that goes into the buildings is Central Office, McClure, and Phoenix. That's not something that's on here, but we need to be looking and thinking about fresh air handlers to go on those buildings. There's no fresh air going in those buildings at all. The other things are when you look at each of the schools with the list that they have, the number one thing, like if you look at the GRC, ATC, you look at that one, I'm not sure, second page, I think. As those things are listed, they are prioritized as to the way the building administrators and councils wanted us to look at those. So those are by order, they're already prioritized. So my suggestion, my recommendation would be that we start working at the top of each of those lists and go as deep into those as you feel financially we can do at this point in time. There isn't anything on here that doesn't need to be done. There are some that doesn't need to be done as soon as others. We want to start the painting at CPOD. That's because that building now 7 going on 8 years old. It's time to start thinking about repainting. So we're going to start picking off. We've got it divided off into 3 or 4 areas. So each year we would take another section to do. And that's why you see just painting in CPOD. Next year you would see, a G-pod or R-pod or one of those other pods. You're going to see something else there. Pressure washing, that to me goes, of course, you're looking at a very relatively inexpensive thing, but you see on the stone work at the high school, the roof starting to shade some of the stone. We can go in while it's this early in the game and pressure wash it and make it look new again. For Campbell, theirs was the gym floor. That's a price to have that gym floor sanded back down to the bare wood and repainted exactly like GRC's floor, with the exception of the cardinal in the center would just be a small cardinal head in the center circle. It would not be the big dominant cardinal that you see. But we got that price, $29,000 is a heck of a price to strip that floor, refinish it, and resurface it exactly to match GRC's floor. Only where at the foul line it says GRC, it would say RDC there. And of course, it wouldn't have the cursive writing on there. They didn't want that on. So that's a real good price on there. Again, you see pressure washing there. You see the things, the majority of those things till you get all the way down to some outside doors in the classroom. That's doors, glass doors that goes from the library to an outdoor classroom. Those things, the building over the years has dropped enough that those doors are not really operable. They don't use that, but they would if the doors worked probably. So we kind of went down, we picked up everything till we got down to that, but you can see each of those costs. Again, each school, they're already listed in priority of what the school wants. And I'm not in disagreement with what they're asking for. I think the asphalt is part of the plan that we started a couple years ago. This is just about what we do each year. And this is just, some of these are now calling for resurfacing. We've sealed the last couple of times. When you look at Campbell, the track out there, that's a 2-inch cap over that walking track. And that cost, we estimated $10,000. The actual cost that came in from the asphalt company was $7,800. So again, we overestimated on the asphalt. So I would say that each and every one of those are a little bit overestimated. But
Paul, could I chime in for a second? I'm looking through, you said the schools all put in here what they wanted and, looking through that list. How come Phoenix is not in that list? Because the only thing, other than for her school, the only thing I see is a secretary's desk inside of the school. I mean, unless I'm missing it.
There should be lists for Phoenix in there. I'm trying to pull this up on my phone and having difficulty, but what Ellen has requested is all the interior paint for her building, and she needs new partitions in her boys and girls restroom. That was her 2 priority requests, and that should be on that list. If it's not, it inadvertently got left off, but we were certainly planning on addressing those large items for her.
I see it through the other list, but I'm seeing the district on the one page, the state and district updates. I'm not seeing anything for Phoenix on there for curriculum.
It's on
nothing
page 2.
On 2?
Number 8. Under summer projects list, 8B, it's on page 2.
Yeah, I see that part of it but I don't see, when I'm looking through curriculum and all that, I don't see that she's got anything.
Well, if you look on the agenda item where it's the summer project list that we're on right now, that's about a 4-page document. And if you look at a 5-page document, if you look on page 1, 2, 3.
Okay, I was looking through all
Page 5, you'll see Phoenix paint building interior, $25,000. Replace.
Okay. Okay.
They'll show up in 2 or 3 places. They'll be listed for furniture. They'll be listed for general maintenance, and then they may be on an asphalt list. So they're separate lists.
Okay, because like I said, I see requesting need a few teachers' desks on all these others, but then I just see one secretary's desk, and her furniture ranges from 22 years plus 2. Am I looking at that right, or am I reading all that wrong?
No, that's all she was asking for. You got to understand, when they're talking about 22-year-old furniture, that doesn't mean all their furniture is that old. There's some in there that's old, and I don't know how. I can't go back 22 years and date it. I can tell you what's been replaced here in the last 12 years, and there's nobody running a building on 22-year-old furniture.
Right.
An entire building. There may be a desk in there that somebody's held over, but nobody is running a building on 22-year-old furniture.
But that building is going to be, is that what you just said, Donald? It is, the interior is going to get painted now?
That's number 1 on her priority list.
Okay.
Yes.
It's going to be. Okay, gotcha. Thank you.
So would it make sense to try to identify a dollar amount of contingency funds that the board is comfortable spending on all of these projects, then go back and try to plug into that number?
When you say a dollar sign that the board's comfortable with, are you talking about the dollar sign that would come out of the general fund contingency?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Just general fund, just contingency money.
That's fine. And allow us in the maintenance department to pick off the ones that we have listed here. So the money that you set aside would be to do those things in the column that shows under general fund.
Well, I was just suggesting that if we could identify that number, then we could go back and start approving items to go into it if the board so desired.
Well, I guess, what I'm looking at, most of well, look like all the schools, their top priorities were all things that we have funds available right now. Is that correct? Is that the way I understand that? I mean, just based on what Alicia told us and what you're telling us, that's funds that we have, I guess, that have been left over from there. And then after that, they start getting down a little bit more, not saying it's a wish list, but it starts getting down just a little bit further. But that's their top priorities, and the top priorities looks to be almost all the way something that we have funds for at the present time.
A majority of it, I would agree with that. When you start getting further down, when you start talking about new clock systems in buildings, talking about replacing gym tile floors with wood, those are down toward the bottoms of those lists, and that's certainly something that to do some of those kinds of things, we'd have to turn to the board. But yes, I would agree. The bulk or a large portion of these things we can do out of the maintenance. But there are some big ticket items like central office roof. We can't do that out of the maintenance fund. And again, that's an estimate on that, but that's based on an estimate that we had about several months back.
That would also require a BG.
Yes, that one would. And so would replacing the tile floor in Strode Station Elementary with wood.
I don't know if Ashley's taking a break or what. Do you want to just real quickly, I've got a little yellow highlighter here. Paul, tell us what you think are the top priorities for each one. So we just did painting, C-Pod, pressure wash, GRC, and then going to Campbell gym floor. Is there anything else on Campbell that you would consider to be the top priorities?
That the double buzzer for the front entrance, that's something we need to do for safety reason.
I'm not on break, Scott. It keeps knocking me off.
The auditorium carpet removal is something that really needs to be done. That entire auditorium is carpeted. The carpet needs to be replaced. Our recommendation is when we take that up, we take that out, we take the carpet up and we polish the concrete like at the high school and just put carpet back down the aisleways, not re-carpet the entire auditorium.
But so all those items are under maintenance. I mean, so under funding sources maintenance. So, I mean, those items, I have no problem with approving those items. I think we need to focus on the general fund source and what items on that column we look at approving or not approving so there is one item on here that there's not a dollar amount, and that's the auditorium seat replacement at Campbell.
We have not gotten back. They haven't gotten back with us from that on replacement of seats. So that's what I was getting ready to say, that, the carpet part, we're figuring to do that, but the seats, I don't even have a price on that yet.
Okay. All right.
And I think it's going to require, I don't know that there would be enough of a savings to use a lot of the seats and just try to go back and match. I'm not sure we can even match those. That's why we've not got a price on that yet. We're looking at either try to match existing seats and replace what needs to be replaced, or just taking those out and replacing the entire auditorium. And I'm going to guess that when we find, that's probably what's going to have to happen, because it's going to be difficult to match those seats probably.
So, I mean, if everyone's in agreement, I prefer to go down the general fund source column and get your opinion, Mr. Christie, on what has to be done, what needs to be done.
Okay. On mine and on the first page on the submitted documents on this one, the first of that page is all asphalt. Are you all with me on the same document? Am I on the same document you all are?
We can move back to it. Yep.
Okay. My recommendation is to do that as printed. And that, as Donald said, with the exception of McClure, and that total was about $95,000 to $96,000 there.
Well, I thought Mr. Stunt mentioned that all the quotes came back at $140,000. And that was.
It did, but I'm not recommending that you go in and you re-asphalt the preschool, because we're so close to doing something there that that'll become part of the project. If we either stay there, remodel, or if we rebuild, you won't need to do it. That's I don't see spending $44,000 there in a building we're probably not going to be in. You know, we'll probably look at sealing it one more year or doing something along that line.
So the 275,000, it's
Was
more
our
like,
estimate.
it's more like 100,000, correct?
Yes,
Is that right?
that's correct. It's about 96,000 when you take out the McClure's parking lot, resurfacing it. When you take it out, it's about 96 on the actual quotes. Now, again, that has to be bid out. So
Yeah.
it'll probably be that
Need
or
to give a little
less.
room there. Need to
Yeah.
give a little room.
So 100,000 at that. I would recommend all that with the exception of McClure.
How much is the bus garage and maintenance? Because that's, on this sheet, a pretty big number.
Well, all of the bus garage, which I was going to recommend because the savings they create this year because of the COVID would pay for their request. And that was going to be my recommendation there, was allow us to use the money that's generated in savings there. to
So
do
the
that.
100,000 includes the bus garage, maintenance, includes everything except the preschool
On asphalt.
on asphalt.
Yes,
Yeah.
sir. Yes, sir. And that's the bus garage, that's the bus,
And Bob, let me get this straight. We're not, I mean, all we're doing is basically sending this out to bid. This is what we're saying we want people to bid on. And
Exactly.
I think our only question on here is, do we want to put the preschool on the bid, or we want to just ask that it be resealed? Because we're gonna have to come back and approve the bid.
yes. On the asphalt, you're going to be seeing it again in a bid form. Now, most of this other stuff, some of it you likely wouldn't have to because they'll be on state bid list and it's already pre-bid.
So we just need to approve you to bid this out, minus the preschool.
The asphalt, yes, and we'll
Yeah,
seal
for
it.
asphalt.
We'll seal it instead of asphalt bid.
Yeah.
Could we maybe get a bid with and without, just in case we decide to do something different? Is that possible, Paul?
Yes, because we've already got a bid for, I mean, they've already given us a price, so yes, we've got the dimensions and everything. It's easy to bid it as is. And we can have just a asterisk to bid it with the 2-inch cover, or a price just to seal it.
So you could get bids on each one of these components, and then
Yes, sir.
we could see what we want to accept at that future point.
Yeah, where we've got an estimated cost out there, when we bid it out, we can come back with an exact cost of what the bids would be, the low bidder would be.
So do we need to make a motion to approve you to send this out to bid, and then we can move on to the next line items?
You can do that.
So that would be for 8A.
For 8A.
only.
So to that end, I'd like to make a motion that we approve for item 8A, that these items be put out for official bid and the seeking of those prices. I'm not sure I like the wording there, but that's what I meant.
I'll second it.
Okay, motion by Heisel, second by Tawby.
Do we have to specify in there that we want one bid without the preschool and one with? Do we have to do that? Because I don't think we'll be able to pull those out if there's just one bid.
No, we have them bid each individually. You're going to see a price on every one of them individually. That's the way,
So you can pull it out yourself.
yeah,
Okay.
that's the way we'll have it bid.
Well, I'll just clarify individual item bids.
All right, District 1,
Yes.
District 2,
Yes.
District 3,
Yes.
District 4.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0 for 8A. Okay. So moving on to 8B.
Is that the GRC/ATC and the painting? Is that, because mine's not
Yeah.
labeled the same as yours. Is that correct? Okay.
Mhm.
I would recommend getting bids on painting at GRC and ATC to start that process. I would recommend the replacement of the outside doors to the outdoor classroom in the library at Campbell. I would recommend the replacement of that old building that's out behind Campbell. It's getting in very bad disrepair. I'd like to replace that and go to some sort of a metal building there.
Is that storage building behind Campbell? you were
Yes,
referring to?
yeah, and it's got broken glasses, the windows have all been boarded over, and it's kind of an eyesore, and it's leaks, a lot of issues. Water runs under it, through it.
Okay.
And we'd like just to remove it and replace it with a metal building.
What was the first thing that you said, Paul? I'm sorry.
Painting at GRC, ATC, getting a bid, and that'll come to you that'll come back to us in the form of a bid also from different contractors.
Okay, thank you.
Donald, if you would chime in, you spoke with the principals as much as I did. When you get down in Campbell, I think the staff fitness room can back down a little bit. The bleachers at Campbell are needing some repair, some planks replaced in them. I'd recommend that. The projector screen, they're wanting one for the gym. New clocks in H-Wing, that's the digital clocks. We have them in all the other wings, but they're not in H-Wing. They're just asking for those to match. Personally, I would think we would hold off on that until we remodel H-Wing. I think that would be part of the bid process that you have to go through when you remodel that wing, that entire wing. I think that could be held off of at this point.
Oh, the clock's off right now, is that what you said?
Yes, I would hold off on the clocks in H-Wing till we decide what we're going to do with H-Wing. The water fountains at Gordy's notion there, I would look at before we do anything on those, let's look at where we're replacing those and consider replacing those with drink fields. Because I'm not sure exactly where all of these fountains are in there, so we can look and how many that is on this. So let me look on that and maybe discuss replacing those with drink field ones. All right, down in Baker, that's for Campbell.
Before we leave Campbell, could you just clarify, so on the funding source for maintenance, there was $65,000 in funding for maintenance was potentially proposed to Campbell.
All those.
Were you supporting the gym floor?
Yes.
To turn back around that and?
Yes.
Okay.
And the double buzzers, all the things that's listed for maintenance to do down there through there, I support those. And if you look at
including a new mower?
Yes.
Is that mower on the bid list?
It will be. Yes, sir. But if you
Didn't
look
we just get new mowers, or wasn't that on something not long ago?
We've got 10 or 12 pieces of property. You're talking a bunch of mowers that, we probably about every year we're buying mowers.
Excuse me, Paul, the board, in its tentative budget, budgeted $45,000 for new mowers at the school, but that budget is not in its final format yet.
Okay.
As I understand. So in July, there's $45,000 in the new budget for replacement of lawnmowers.
So Paul, to make sure I understand what you're saying, you support everything that's listed under, this is for Campbell, everything that's listed under the maintenance column. Is that correct, or do I not interpret you correctly? I can't hear you, Paul.
He's muted.
Oh, that helps. I want to look at the mower because I'm not sure that any of those that was in the budget is budgeted for Campbell. I'll look to make sure before we say yes on that one through the maintenance. I'll check and see if that's one of them that was in the budget for next year. But all those, if you look at the top, those top priorities, I support every one of those, and those were the top priorities of the principals, or the principal there.
Donald, I should know this as many times we've talked about these mowers. How much is a mower? The ones you get for the schools?
About 13,000.
So, but it
Zero.
says in there that he's got, so you've already got the 13,000 for it this year, right? No, wrong?
Yes, he does.
Okay. Okay, so that's coming out of maintenance anyway.
Yes, it is.
All right, that's what I need to know.
But then, Paul, you told us that the outside doors and the new shed and the bleachers and the new projector, which is over in it's called the contingency funds, you think we ought to spend that $50-some thousand out of
Yeah.
contingency funds for those?
Yes,
Well, these are estimates, so we're just.
that's right. None of these are exact costs. None of these are exact.
Oh, these are exact?
No, these are not exact. None of these are exact costs. These are estimates.
So
What if
you'll take this out to the bid list, or, I
Yeah.
mean, you bid this out?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Or will you go to potentially just to the state bid list?
We'll look
If
at the
we said
state
this
bid.
is okay, you might go out and you just would pick all these off and no further action would be required.
Yes, we'll go to the state bid list first. Now, if any of these that aren't on the state bid list, they have to be bid out by at least 3 companies. But the state bid list has already been bid out by at least 3 companies.
Paul, I keep getting knocked off, and somebody may have already asked this. What is staff fitness room equipment?
It's treadmills, things like that. It's a small, physical fitness room, like you might see at a gym with, treadmills, step climbers, those type things, 2 or 3. It's a few pieces of that. At that price, that's probably, I don't know, Donald can chime in. I'm going to guess that's 5 or 6 pieces of equipment at that price. I don't have the list of what that $25,000 represents as far as pieces of equipment. I'm sorry. I'm looking at the wrong, the 25. I don't know what the $25,000 is made up of pieces of equipment. That was just the bid for the pieces that they requested.
Okay, I mean, all right. They don't use the regular, they can't use the regular equipment that's there?
Well, the regular equipment that's there is down in the field house that's where most of the equipment will be once, now the GRC's at the new stadium, the weight room down there at the bottom that's all the equipment that they pretty much have. And that's what he's asking, to designate a room up there for a staff fitness. Again, I think that is if you notice, that's down to the next to last thing, so,
Right, well, okay, thank you.
or the third from the bottom.
Is that?
Yeah, and I'll just chime in.
schools
I mean,
that have
it's definitely
that?
at the bottom.
Oh, sorry, Dustin, I didn't, what'd you say? Was that Dustin?
Yes.
Okay.
That's
What did
okay.
you say?
The high school does, and it's part of our health and fitness plan that we submit to the state of Kentucky, that they want a space for staff to have the opportunity to work out. But again, that is absolutely not on my top priority. So I don't want to get stuck on this by any means. I was just asked to give a more formal list, and that was on there. But it is a part of our health and fitness plan.
Well, do any of the other schools have a staff fitness room? Paul? Or anybody? Paul, you're muted.
again.
I mute so it doesn't echo. I'm not aware of any others unless somebody's maybe brought in they bought a treadmill or something stuck in a teacher work lounge or something. I'm not aware of any
Okay.
at this point. High school, yes, but that's the one that the girls and boys basketball team and the soccer girls team uses. They're inside the school. But I think the staff probably can use that too.
Right, which I understand if kids are using it, I mean, I can be on board if kids are being able to use it as well. Okay, thank you.
Mr. Howard, this, quick question, since you're on here, on the old water fountains. I know it's down on your list, but, Mr. Peridot brought up a good point, about germs and viruses. I mean, with with everything going on with COVID, would you move that up your list, or would you leave it there?
I appreciate the question. We were working on this list before COVID-19. But absolutely, even our quote new fountains, with the remodel, we're going to have middle school kids touching things everywhere. And I think it might be a good time to think, 5-10 years out of what we want things to look at. And I've got other fountains. I mean, I don't even have a water fountain in the cafeteria. I mean, we've got to set jugs out to have water to meet the regulation for having water available for kids. I mean, that's a nightmare. I mean, you've got kids trying to line up to get water out of Gatorade jugs, basically. So I kind of prioritize that a little bit ahead. But yeah, I mean, I think given our current circumstances, it would be a need for not just my school, but all schools.
Like I said a few minutes ago, all water fountains that we're looking at here, before we price any replacement of any water fountain, we will look at replacing it with bottle fill fountains on all of these. So we'll look at that. That's an issue that if we're going to have to go to all bottle fills in every building, there's a lot of schools throughout the state of Kentucky that's going to be buying a lot of water fountains. But we will look at that. I know at the new gym and at the high school, we have bottle fills, and over at the field house, one have bottle filled. Any other questions about Campbell?
I think you can go on to Baker now.
Okay. The replacement carpet in the atrium, we've already done that. That was listed on the maintenance side. That's completed already, so you can strike that one off. The mulch in the playground, that's important at every one of these schools. You'll see that on there. Every year we mulch the playgrounds every year. So you're going to see that on every one. We do that every year. So that's high on the priority list. This year you're seeing the pressure washer. When we contract out the pressure wash, we'll have them bid all these buildings at the same time. And that's prices that we've come up there is based on work that we've had the pressure washers do when we did concrete, when we did some pressure washing on it, some things there. The new ceiling tiles in the student restrooms, I think those need to be done. And that's something that we can even look at. Well, that's not listed as a maintenance item, so I'm a little bit leery of adding anything else to the maintenance because we were on a pretty tight budget there, so that 2,000 would probably need to come over under the general fund. But the next one, replace the 2 rubber rooms with tile. There was 2 rooms that years ago, they were looking at rubberized tile, and we had some rooms we were trying to remove carpets from and bad tile from. And that was a deal that they came in and they replaced 2 of these rooms, the tile at no cost, just for us to use. That's been several years ago. It's worn well, but that's the only 2 rooms that's not tiled in the building. So we're looking to take that up and replace that with tile. And that cost there of $9,000 is a pretty accurate cost because we have tile work being done at every building in the district every year. So we've got a pretty good handle on what that tile cost would be. So that $9,000 is a pretty accurate cost on replacing those 2 rooms. So for Baker, it would be a total of $11,000 at that point there. Now, we don't have costs, and Don will have to chime in here. Of course, the lockers, our original lockers, there are several of those. It's got some dents in the doors and some functionality problems. We've tried straightening those as much as we can. The bleachers, we've done a lot of work. There's been some problem with those. The retracting system is beginning to wear on that. So that's what that would be, and I don't have the cost on that. The new exterior doors, I'm not sure where that is. New furniture we'll address back on the back page when we start talking about furniture. a security gate at the playground. Donald and I talked about this. There's no fence there, so, you know, I'm not sure what the security gate, I've not talked with Mr. Mounts. He's probably on here, the security gate, but there is not a fence around any of that in the back, so I'm not sure where we would put a security gate.
We were just talking about where our students, the playground is on the car loop side to prevent cars coming up through that area during the day while students are out playing kickball and on the playground or walking around our loop.
So you're talking about a gate then, Josh, on just across the road at the end of the parent loop?
Right, on the left-hand side of the building, on the playground side of the building, just to prevent traffic.
Before I give a price on that, I would check with our VOTEC students. They've made several of the gates in our district. That may be a place where we could look to get that labor done, get that done a lot more effectively and less costly, and also something for the students to do. But they've made several of our security gates throughout the district. So I apologize, Josh. I thought you were talking about back to the playground. I see where you're talking about now. And I do not have the price on the new bleachers and what work has been quoted on that. Donald might speak to that.
So for Baker, you have, the rubber rooms, the lockers, those are things you do recommend?
Yes.
And you're not sure on bleachers?
No,
because you
not the
don't have a
locker, the ceiling tile in the student restrooms and for $2,000 and the $9,000 tile replacement in those two rooms.
That was but that's maintenance paying for that, right?
No, that's out of general fund on those.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
I do not have now locker price, or I do not have the bleacher price.
Okay.
And Donald can speak to what's been quoted on bleacher need.
Yeah, typically we start getting quotes from companies like Toad Vine Enterprises on coming in and pricing what the complete bleacher replacement would be. We have not done that yet, but that, you know, we could do that pretty quickly. But now, going back just quickly to the exterior doors at Baker, we have already replaced the complete storefront in the front of the building and the complete storefront on the side of the building on the parent loop side. So I think he's talking more about the single doors around the building that probably need replaced.
Because the storefront has been replaced on the cafeteria end also in recent years. Donald, do you have any idea on the price on exterior, on the doors you're talking about? I don't.
No, I just need some confirmation from the board to take a look at that and determine what we need and get some prices for our next board meeting.
Any other questions about Baker?
That's what I was going to say. If there's no more questions, I think you can go on. Because this 8B, we're going to do all together, right? You all didn't want to do it by school, or did you want to do it by school? Scott, I know you've got an answer for me here. Where you at?
I'm right here. I'm just taking notes as to what these figures are as we go along. I think we need to know what the daggum number is in total.
Yeah.
So I'm just making notes of the top priority items as we go along. I don't think we should do it by school because I think we need to know what sort of price tag we're talking about dipping into our precious contingency fund to spend on this.
Okay. So go 8B, 8A, 8B, 8C. Okay, we'll keep going. All right, go ahead, Paul, with Strode.
Strode Station, I recommend the mulch. We'll pay for that out of maintenance. I do recommend painting the gym and cafeteria walls. The clock system, that one I think probably hold off, and the gym, replace the gym tile floor. that's going to be a major construction of coming in and actually digging that up. Unless you have some sort of a transition that's going to have the gym floor raised to go to the outside and the inside, because the concrete, you're either going to take it down or put the wood floor on top of that. But you're looking at $100,000 to do that. So I'm not sure if that's something that you want to take on at this point, or if that needs to go another year. But I do recommend the painting and the mulch. I do recommend those.
Paul, they're wanting the clock system. Is there an issue with the clock system they have now? Do we know if it's functional or what the issue is there? Just looking for digital updates or something along those lines?
I think the majority of it's digital updates. These analog clocks, you know how they were in yours building. They don't stay together. And kids can tell you by the bell which clock's 3 minutes fast and which one's 4 minutes slow, and it's that kind of thing. The digital it's the same style clock all through all the buildings. Generally, those digital clocks are tied into your announcement system where they automatically set to the bank time of the day automatically and that kind of thing. They're more accurate.
But your recommendation that can wait? Or?
I think we wait till we see what this total is, and then we come back and talk about clocks, because you've got clocks in a couple of 3 buildings. The gym floor, that's a very costly one. I get it. The tile floor is not conducive to a lot of things, but for the indoor playroom, I mean, that's got to remember that once you start a wood floor, you're raising that up. It means your bleachers have all got to come off the walls and be moved accordingly. They got to come out of there to replace the floor. Lots of things. That's a pretty cumbersome thing to go in at this point. Any questions about Strode?
So your
Sure.
your contingency fund request on that is 25,000, or at least your recommendation, I'm sorry.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Thank you.
On Shear, would recommend the place we're going to do that out of maintenance, recommend that's the last 10 rooms of carpet in either Shear, Strode, or any of them. So that's our last 10 classrooms to switch over to tile. It's about a 10-year project we've been working on throughout the district. I would recommend mulching the playground. I would recommend pressure washing. All 3 of those costs are at the maintenance cost, and I recommend those. Justice, mulch playground, pressure wash, exterior of the building, recommend both of those. Same at Concrete. Preschool, mulch the playground. And I do think the partial pressure wash on that building, what we need there, it's a little bit less than it is on some of the other buildings, but I would recommend going on and doing that because we are going to be there for a couple more years at least. That helps the appearance tremendously. Phoenix, that's another building that's kind of in the mix, possibly with the facility plan. However, the paint, I think that'll help increase the value of it. It's certainly going to make it a much more desirable building for those students while they're there. I would recommend painting the complete interior at Phoenix, and I would recommend the replacement of the boys and girls restrooms petitions, and then pressure washing. So all 3 of those at a cost of $35,000 to the district and $1,500 to the maintenance department. Bless you. Central office roof replacement. That's one that's going to be a BG. If we do that, if you decide to move forward with that one, that's one I have a lot of concern with. Like I said, because of the asbestos on the interior, and we've chased leaks around that building for 10 years, and it's just about beyond repairing the leaks right now. So that's one that you all will need to discuss about that, but that one certainly is one that needs to be done. That's a pretty close estimate on that one too. Bus garage, the tree removal, recommend that. That's along the property line between us and the church that goes back through there. The trees have got, they're causing us electrical problems down through there, getting in the fence and getting up into the electrical wires. It's on our property. It's also causing us problems on that metal building, the storage building, the shed down through there. I would recommend each of all four of those things. Those are all at maintenance expense. I would recommend each of those. There's no cost to the district on that. That's all of those.
So if I've tallied up your wish list or your priority list out of contingency funds on all these, I think it's $362,000. Of course, 200 of it is the roof at central office.
That was 362.
Yes, sir, 362 if my math is correct on that.
I would agree with that number.
You ready to move on?
But do we need to make a motion for item 8B?
Okay.
That's what I would suggest, to do it that way.
Mr. Talby, if it would make you more comfortable, you can put in your motion that we would come back with an exact bid quote on those items.
Yeah, I think it would. I'm in favor of the items Mr. Heisel, I think, added up. I was like 9,000 off. I think I might have included something that was kind of optional, but I think we just approved those items for you to come back with on the, or you can purchase those, I guess, off the bid list.
The lockers and stuff at Baker that you didn't have a price for, you all want to try to get the prices on those and come back to us with that, or?
I would submit to Mr. Stump to see where he is on that part of the proposal right now, who he's talking with.
Okay. Go ahead, Bill, I'm sorry.
That's okay. Should we, should we approve it as a amount or as a line item? Any advice? I
don't know that we can approve it as an amount because you've still got to bid some out.
Yeah.
Don't you want to make a motion just to seek bids on those items?
And even if we're seeking bids, even if we are looking at the state bid list, I can give you that. We can submit that bid, the state bid list number to you. The only thing that I would caution here is if we're going to do this, we need to do it quickly, and we're probably going to need to do something in a special call because time will be of the essence. You know, I don't know. I don't think it's going to happen, but there is the possibility that we could be looking at a July or early August comeback. I don't know. So time is of the essence. We do have we're gaining a week or two here right now. So probably if we can meet and get the prices together, and maybe, I know you weren't wanting to put anything else on the budget meeting next week, but maybe if we had these bids ready by next week, that would certainly give us some additional time to get started on these as far as the work being completed and being ready for when students return.
Well, things like this, I'm fine with putting on the budget meeting because in a sense, it's going to change the numbers. And it may help too, to hear the budget and then do the vote on this.
I think having it on the budget meeting makes a lot of sense because then we could look at the whole package and, because I have the funny feeling by the time we're done here in a little bit, we'll have run through $500,000 in contingency money. And maybe we don't have that to spend if there's additional costs because of additional things we're going to have to do in the next fiscal year because of social distancing and all that stuff.
Okay. So in the motion for right now, you're just want to put it out to where you can get the bids, right, Paul? Is that all you're looking for? On what you need the bids on?
Yes, and whatever the date of the meeting is next week, I'll try to have the bids to you in a broken out form so you can pick and choose which ones you want or don't want.
Okay. Is that okay with you, Bill?
Yeah, that's perfect.
Okay. Now, did you make a motion or were you just discussing making a motion?
I'm not sure what motion we need to make, other than make a motion for items 8B to be approved, to be submitted for bid. Scott, are you okay with that?
Yeah, so just to clarify, we're not approving any of these things to move forward one inch in terms of actual spending it, just to nail down the prices to the best we can. Yeah, I'm happy with that approach at this point.
Okay.
Okay. All right, motion by Mr. Talby. I'll second it. District 1,
Yes.
District 2,
Yes.
District 3,
Yes. District
4.
Yes.
Motion on that passes 5-0. Okay.
Let me make sure I'm okay on the understanding of this. You all are okay with me on the maintenance side of things, going ahead and doing those things per state bid list and bidding out? Or do you want all that to come back to you too?
What was your question?
I'm okay with the maintenance.
Using if you were okay with me going ahead, because we could start some of this stuff that maintenance is paying for, because that's money that's already in their budget. Or I didn't know if you want me to go on start on that, or you want me to come back with exact quotes at this next meeting.
My opinion is you could spend your maintenance money as you normally do.
Thank you.
I agree with that.
Okay.
I do too.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Well, we've already done some of those things. It was, like I said, some of those things that we had on this list to start with, we went back and we've already completed, like the carpet at Baker and some things like that. There were things that we would normally do anyway. I'm going to ask Donald on the furniture assessment if he'll go over that with you. He worked with the principals on that. I wasn't as involved in that, so I'm going to ask him if he'll present the plan on that.
Okay, well, we're ready for him.
Okay, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, we have I asked the principals to inventory their furniture in their buildings, and each principal has gotten back with us and kind of give us an assessment of what they have. And of course, our newer buildings, like Concride and Justice and GRC and Campbell's renovation in those 3 wings, we've gotten a lot of new furniture along with those BG projects that we've completed on those buildings. So the schools that really have the oldest furniture are the ones that haven't had much construction as of late, like Strode, Shearer, Phoenix, preschool, and schools of that nature. Now, most of the furniture in those schools, the principals have indicated, are in the neighborhood of 20 years old. So it's hard to prioritize what you need in those buildings when most of your furniture is in that, or they're reporting their furniture is in that age frame. I've put on the list there some of the specific things that the principals were requesting at the various schools, and including those at the newer renovated schools that need some additional stuff. For example, GRC said the only thing they really need out there right now is tops or tabletops for 4 of their labs. But the schools that are in most need or would like to get some allowance for furniture are the schools that we haven't had much construction in, like Strode, Shearer, Phoenix. I think preschool's okay right now with their furniture because their furniture is so different than what most of our schools need for students. They have more furniture related to centers and things of that nature. But I've gotten a quote from local furniture salesmen that puts us in the neighborhood of $200 to $300 per desk. That's including looking at either a table and chair separated or a table and chair combination. Those typically range in the $200 to $300 range. So you can have some general idea of what a classroom would cost you. If you multiply it, say 25 times 200, that gets you in the ballpark of what it would cost to buy the student desks in a classroom. Now, Baker began this discussion with a request of the board of $120,000 to replace student furniture in their building. And if you use that figure that I've gotten based on per student desk, that would provide furniture for about a little more than 600 students in that building. But now Baker's also in need of science tables, and Concrete had mentioned in the past that they need some science tables. So there's principals out there that haven't really prioritized what furniture they would want right now if given an allowance, because their claim is that most of their, if not all of their furniture is pretty antiquated. So I think what Paul and I would be comfortable in recommending is looking at some allowance per school, either based on enrollment or based on the conditions of their schools, that would be on some 5, 10, 15-year rotation to where they can start picking out their highest priorities and getting some new stuff now, but spreading that out over a number of years. I mean, many of our principals right now are reporting desks that are 20 plus years old, but not really asking for new stuff. So those desks, they last a pretty good long time if they're taken care of, and that's kind of where we're at. I put on that list what the principals are asking specifically for right now. Some of the items are just general saying our furniture is 20 years old, which means we need everything. So that's basically how that's presented to you.
I'll make a comment and kind of piggyback off what Mr. Hassel said, mentioned a while ago. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we have like a $6.3 million contingency right now. I think if I read that right in the packet, we've got probably $270,000 to $300,000 project with laptops, for Chrome laptops coming up. We don't know what else may come up with this COVID. We don't know when we're going to start school. I'm not too interested in looking at big ticket items at the moment until we get a better feel for what we're going to need to spend and what's going to be in our contingency fund. I'm sorry, someone was trying to say something. Not everybody chime in at once.
Obviously, I'm not very keen on jumping into it too heavily either, with so many unknowns about the contingency, so many unknowns about what our real tax collection is going to be this fall and what timing that's going to be. I've heard stories from other counties that people have told them to maybe figure the tax collection will come in 2 months late. I don't know. There's a lot of unknowns out there.
Yeah, I do agree, and I do think that we just have to make sure our priorities are things that are directly involved in instructions, such as the Chromebooks, and we need to be really careful about the other things that we need out there. I'm sure we do need desks and those type of things, and I hate to just say, we can get by with what we've got right now, but I think that's a decision that Mr. Christie, Mr. Stump have got to make. If there's something that they can't get by, that has to be expressed to us. But it's tough for me to look at this list and say, man, this is a priority and let's dip into the contingency right now in anything other than those Chromebooks and the regular routine maintenance that we're getting done.
Somebody else unmuted and I missed it.
So
I think to summarize, Ms. Ritchie, we're kind of conservative and at this point on.
No, I
on this
understand.
list.
I heard you. I thought somebody else unmuted and was trying to talk, but it came through squealed. I couldn't understand. I was just making sure that everybody got their chance. But no, I agree with you. Yes, I totally agree.
Yeah, that was me. I was trying to come in. I was going to say if we could maybe table that and just see how the fall comes, see what that looks like. I'd like to make sure that all our kiddos have the Chromebooks over the desk, maybe at this point.
we can work with principals and come up with a absolute need list instead of just going and looking at whole buildings and things like that and just come up with an absolute list. And then maybe, and I know Donald is working on, we're back to the spreading this out over a number of years, and maybe we can see how that would fit into the years. And so we know by that, we can know ahead what we're planning on doing next year. We've got the asphalt and some of those things on a pretty good plan. And the technology has been up to this point till we've got thrown this curveball. So I think we can get the furniture on that same kind of a working list year to year. If that's where we're going to end up on that, if you want to go to the last page, and I don't know what's labeled on yours, it's just my last page. It's the bus.
Do we just want to do a consent to hold off on that one then? I don't know that you really need a motion. I mean, Brian, is that, I mean, I'm fine with just a consent that, because we all seem to agree.
I think that would be fine at this time, Ashley.
Okay, thanks. Okay, then go ahead, Paul.
On the last page, I'm not sure how it's numbered on yours. It's the bus garage. The first, it starts off with the three number one priorities. Utilize the fourth bay with portable jacks. Those are hydraulic jacks. It's a total of approximately $25,000 that would turn us into a fourth bay. We've got the 4 people there that would allow each one to do a different, have their own bay, to utilize the maintenance guys better. Plus, it also gives us an opportunity with these lifts that we're talking about there. You can now put on other vehicles like any regular vehicles like maintenance trucks, like SRO vehicles. We could now, with that lift, we could go to all of our oil changes, all of our maintenance work being down there. The bus lifts won't work on those. So this would be to work on other types of vehicles, but it would still, the way the lifts would work, they could still do some other work with it too, besides just on those vehicles, but it would open up a lot more opportunity to do things there. They can't lift an entire bus, but they can pull a front end up and lift the front end of a bus and some things like that. Those are $25,000. The forklift, they have a forklift. It's in need of repair. Hydraulics are pretty weak. It's been, I couldn't tell you how many years old it is. It's very old. They've listed that as a number one priority. If I had to take one out, that would be the only one in there that I wouldn't put as a number one. The hydraulic leak, in my opinion, is the most important one up there. That's the one that's going to come back and bite us big time if we don't get that repaired. If we leak hydraulic fuel or hydraulic fluid into the ground, we could find EPA issues and be digging up a floor and replacing soils and everything else under a building. So that one, in my opinion, is absolutely necessary. The fourth bay would be my second one, and the forklift would drop to probably the third on the list of those 3 things there.
Mr. Christie, this is all contingency fund money?
This could actually be money that is currently being saved in the transportation budget.
That's where I was going to go with it. There's $126,000 that we know that we're going to save there. If you look at this entire list in its entirety down the cost, if it's a hydraulic, you're talking 57.5, 67. You're talking about $70,000 to do everything on there, and that could easily come out of the savings generated from monies not spent in this year's budget at the transportation department, and not affect your contingency or maintenance fund, either one. I didn't name these things. The hot seat pressure washes down there, those are smaller. They're made, they can do the undercarriages of the buses, and we could get by with that without having to replace the bus wash at this time. You could do an entire bus with those, but the idea of the bus wash, to me, the more important part of the bus wash is the undercarriage of the buses. That's, to me, is more important to clean the salt and everything off of, because that's where we're losing buses to rust, is the undercarriages are rusting out on them. So we need these to be able to do the undercarriages of the buses.
On the forklift, is that a repair or is that, what's that 14.5? Is that for just repairing the existing one?
I think that's looking to replace it. I don't have that, but I'm thinking that's a replacement. That may not be a brand new, but that's where they've looked that they can get one to replace what they have that would do the work that they lift. They have to lift a lot of rear ends for buses and things like that that has to be either stored out in the storage building, have to be brought in. So they do use a forklift almost on a daily basis. And this one, it loses pressure. It won't hold stuff up. It's a safety.
That is a replacement, and that is
Yeah.
a used forklift that I
Yeah.
priced out of Lexington, Kentucky. So it's a newer forklift, but not a brand new one. And we have a reverse that's out on the forklift, and we're having brake issues. And to start down that hill, going into the parking lot with a forklift, sometimes we have to go down to the central office and actually take deliveries off of trucks. It's just dangerous, and we need a new forklift.
Okay, thanks.
On that, as far as that goes, if they have the money in savings, I mean, to me, they should be able to use their money and get this taken care of. Because if we wouldn't have to take it out of contingency.
Yeah, we're not asking for anything more than what we've already saved. So we're asking for a whole lot less than we've actually saved. So
It seems like if Mr. Christie wants to move forward with these, he already has the ability to do that.
Hey, that one I can deal with. You all can just take that one off your list then.
Of course, I was just expressing my own opinion. There's four
I mean,
other opinions too.
If he has the money, I'm fine with you all going ahead and doing that. I don't think we need to, I mean, that's my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. I agree as well.
Okay, so
So just make sure I'm on the right page with this as I move forward and start meeting with Donald and all these folks tomorrow. We're moving forward. I'm going to come back to you with, we're moving forward with the things where maintenance has the money. You're giving me permission to go ahead and do those. And if we have to bid it, I'll bring the bids back to you for you to look at. But anything that we can do off the state bid list out of maintenance fund that's already funded for that, we're going to go on and do. I'm going to bring you back a bid list on everything on the board side, capital fund, or the general fund side. I'm going to bring you back bids at this next meeting on everything for you all to see, to approve. And then the things at the bus garage, we're going to do from monies generated from the savings and use of fuel and things like that. Is that correct?
it's the way I understood it.
Yes.
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 Gordy, are you okay with that?
Yeah, I'm just asleep over here. That's good.
Okay, I know this rain's rough, ain't it? Okay, so Paul, that's everything you need to know then? On item number 8?
Yes, sorry.
No, you're fine. All right, internal board business. We have nothing other than, Arlene, can you get with everyone and try to set up a date or for a special meeting? To get these other things resolved?
Yes.
Okay, that would be great. I'm not sure, is there a certain week that you all want to look at?
Are we thinking we're doing this one in person?
We don't know yet.
I mean, I don't know why we wouldn't try to do it next week if we can. I think the sooner the better, in person or virtual.
Okay. Okay, so next week. I'm good with
I'm
next
good.
week.
Me too.
Will next Tuesday's meeting be in person?
We don't know yet. It's not next Tuesday, is it? It's the 26th, or, yeah, next Tuesday. You're right. I'm sorry. We don't know yet. We were kind of waiting to see what was going to happen with everything that's kind of came up today. Paul and I were just going to watch and see, kind of how the cases go around Clark County.
Okay.
Because it can only be 10, right? A gathering of 10.
Yes.
10. 10 starting Friday, I believe.
Yeah. So, I don't know. We'll have to figure it out towards the end of the week, I guess, Paul.
Out though to the media though, and we've got a holiday.
When do you need it by?
I would post on this Thursday.
Okay.
And we have a holiday on Monday, and you know, Winchester Sun is now down to only twice weekly.
Okay. Oh, I did not know that. I mean, personally, I would prefer to keep it online through next week until we figure more out. But, I mean, what is your all's opinions?
I'm good either way.
Sherry?
If I had to vote.
Yeah, I'm good. Either way.
What'd you say, Scott? I didn't hear you.
If I was just throwing my opinion up next week, I'd say stay online, even though they're not particularly efficient from a time standpoint, but I could go either way, except not Monday.
Right.
Since we don't have ball games now, Wednesdays is NASCAR night too, so keep that.
Okay, well, I would prefer to stay online next week too. So if that's good with everybody, then Arlene, you can go on and just let them know it'll be online Tuesdays.
Okay.
And then, so if y'all want to do another special call meeting, you do have the meeting on Tuesday. Would you all be available to do it on Thursday? So Paul won't miss NASCAR on Wednesday.
Yes. I'm good on Thursday.
I'm
I
good
was
on
just
Thursday.
kidding. I was just kidding. I can record. It's no problem.
No, that'll give us a day break. So Sherry, Gordy, Scott, Thursday.
I'm good.
Yeah, okay.
All right, I'm good.
All right. So there you go, Arlene. You don't have to email everybody. Next Thursday. And we'll just set it up for Zoom too, or Google Meet.
Still have to notify the media, so I'll let them know when I do the other one tomorrow.
Okay. All right. Okay. So if with all that being said, now we're at consent agenda items. Is there anything anybody wants to pull off the consent agenda items?
I would like to pull 11 and 12 off.
Okay. Anybody else? Do you just want to pull them off and consider them separate, Scott?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Actually, I just had a question about 13 to Mr. Christie. It's a fundraiser request, and I know we had stopped fundraisers, and I just I knew there was one in there, but I didn't know if that was just something set up for next year or how that was.
I understand there's no fundraising going on right now whatsoever. I'd have to look through the stat. I don't recall what it was, but that could be the only thing that would need, and it could certainly be put off because there's no fundraisers going right now. Alicia, do you remember exactly what that was? I'm looking through here to see if
It actually is one that occurred before the school shut down. It just didn't get on the board meeting for approval. So it's really it's informing the board that it occurred.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Scott, did you want to go ahead and talk about 11 and 12?
Yes, if you don't mind. On 11 and 12, since we are getting a pretty good slug of money in from federal sources, it just makes me wonder, because this is going to impact our general fund, can we fund these special costs, especially the money that we've lost in food service here in the spring from the $1.3 million or whatever we're getting in federal funds or whatever the amount is. Because if we don't collect it, that means it's coming out of the general fund, and I'm not sure that I'm comfortable with that.
The funds, the CARES funds, you are eligible to use those for recovery of any food losses in food service. So that is an eligible expenditure for some of that money. Understand that too, I think some other costs that we're probably going to need to do out of that, there's probably going to be some personnel type things, because we've got kids, it's going to be probably the time we come back, it's going to be 5 months without any formal education. We're going to need some intervention work with some certain groups of kids. We know that's coming. So I'm looking at thinking there's going to be a small part of that that's going to need to be to bring some people in to work with individual kids. And then there's going to be a certain amount of recovery. You could certainly use that for food services, but remember that money is good until July. I think I don't have it right in front of me. I think it's July. Of 2022. So that money can be carried over from year to year. And my concerns, like I said, are not with this year or this coming year with what's been budgeted. My biggest concerns is what's going to come toward the end of next year and the beginning of the next year. So I'm looking to hang on to some of that 1.5 million, but we do know there's going to be some immediate needs.
I just think philosophically that 1.5 million is directed to take care of things, at least I'm oversimplifying it, that have been impacted by COVID, and this is jumping right out of something that has. And that's where I think the funding ought to come from, not our precious general fund.
Anyone else like to comment on 11 or 12?
This is Becky Ashley.
Hi, Becky.
Just to remind everybody on the board that if the food service account goes in the red, the general fund has to cover it anyway. That's the law.
Okay. So, Mr. Heisel, are you now asking to make a separate motion on 11 and 12?
Yes, ma'am. I would like to propose a separate motion on 11 and 12.
Okay. If you would like to go ahead with, sorry.
So for item number 11, my motion is to not approve the waiver of April, May, and June indirect cost.
Motion by Mr. Heisel on item number 11. Would anyone like to second that?
Before anyone seconds it, I just got a question. If we don't approve it, and maybe Becky, this might be directed to you or Mr. Christie, what's the ramifications?
Bill, this is Becky. Through our spreadsheets that we've been working on over the last couple of months, we're already in the negative. I don't have it sitting here right in front of me. I think Alicia has it. Alicia, do you have that spreadsheet that I sent you?
I will try to pull it up, but every time I pull up something, my Google Meet pauses out.
And that's okay. I'm not looking for the specific numbers or
Okay,
anything.
so as of right now, we're already in the negative, and we've already, the way it's going to continue, we've already dug into our contingency fund. We had a nice little contingency fund ourselves, and we've already dug into that with food service, and I still have payroll to pay, through June 30th. And in June, I believe that's to the cost of some $200 and something thousand, because June bites us bad because it's a double whammy payroll. So by the time that gets paid out, by the time the year end rolls over, we're going to be in the negative. I'm just pulling this because I don't have it right in front of me, but I was thinking it was something like $160,000 in the red to start the year.
And you have to pull that out of your contingency, don't you?
Well, we wouldn't have it in our contingency. That's using our contingency. That means the general fund would have to front us.
Yeah. Okay.
And I know that you may think 35,000 isn't a whole lot or whatever for April, May, and June, but every little bit counts. And we've already used up all the food and stuff that we could use in our freezers and storerooms. And so now we have to start buying food to cover us through summer.
Mm-hmm.
I was suggesting that the new additional federal funds is what fills that hole.
I know, but when are we going to get that? The general fund's going to have to cover us until we get it. Do you see what I'm saying?
I'm not knowledgeable on the timing of that. I have to defer to Mr. Christie and Ms. Ellis.
I'm not either. We've been notified as to the amounts that we're going to receive, but I'm thinking it's coming up here by the end of the month is when they said that we have to have the budgets put in by the end of the month.
That's my understanding as well. We've not been given a specific deadline. They're still waiting on actual federal approval and on all of their plans as well at the KDE level. But I just want to caution that there's been a lot of, I think total on this CARES Act money is about 1.5 million, and we've thrown out a lot of things to use that 1.5 on. So it's going to go very quickly. So there needs to be a priority list of what exactly are we going to spend that money on, because we've talked about hiring staff, we've talked about technology. Now we're talking about reimbursing food service. It only goes so far. And I think I paused out in that conversation, so I apologize. My internet is not the greatest here.
No, you paused out when you said it only goes so far. I think that was
what I'm saying though is we're committing the grant in a lot of directions, so we just need to be cautious.
I mean, my opinion on this is this money has went to feed these kids through all this time. I mean, I'm fine with paying it or to approve the way, but I think that we're going to be using, just like Alicia said, that money's going to be going in so many different directions that it's not going to be able to go back to here.
Guys, just to let you know, we're tracking all of the expenditures that are COVID related. We're tracking those things. Just because, if it's paid out of general fund now, doesn't mean that it can't be reimbursed when the funds do come in. It doesn't mean, you've got 2 years to reimburse those things with these funds.
I think we should.
Are you saying we can retroactive? I'm sorry.
Excuse me, Scott. Go ahead.
Oh, well, I think I jumped on top of you. I'm sorry. You go ahead.
No problem. I was just saying, I think the general fund should go ahead and take care of it. Just as a small business, we've applied for some of that money and it's trickling in, and you don't want food services to be caught in a bad spot. So let's just go ahead and take care of it out of general fund, and then we can move the money around later.
Scott, you are correct, Scott. It can be retroactive. It can retroactively be replaced.
Okay, if we can retroactively do it, then I'm okay with it then. So I will then, for the sake of simplicity, Ms. Ritchie, is it okay if I just withdraw my motion?
Sure.
Okay.
I would like to say one more thing just to let you all know. I have applied for 2 grants and I was denied both of those grants. So and these are grants that were out there through other, for Healthy Alliance and then a couple of other things. And I just got an email yesterday or Friday that I was denied for the second grant. So I'm not having any luck with getting any of these extra funds other ways.
Sherry and I both understand, girl. We're right there with you.
Thank you.
So then to summarize, I'm now withdrawing my motion for number 11. I'm not going to make a motion for 12. So if you feel like it, Ms. Ritchie, you can then leave the consent agenda the way it is.
Okay. Great, thank you. All right, so would anyone like to make a motion for items number 9 through 28?
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Peridot, who's fallen asleep.
I'll second.
Second by Mr. Talby. All those District 1,
Yes.
District 2,
Yes.
District 3,
Yes.
District 4.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0. Authorize payment of salaries and accounts payable.
Move to pay the bills.
I'll make that second.
Motion by Mr. Peridot, second by Mr. Heisel. District 1,
Yes.
District 2,
Brilliant idea, yes.
District 3,
Yes.
District 4.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0. Motion to adjourn. I will make that motion.
Well, before we do that, I'd like to thank Mr. Brookshire for putting up with the pain of listening to this entire meeting. He's been in my corner here and he hasn't fallen asleep, and I appreciate you. Got a strong will, sir.
I appreciate that recognition. It's been an interesting conversation for sure.
Sorry for the interruption, Ms. Ritchie.
Nope, you're fine. You can second though.
I like to second that.
Motion by Ms. Ritchie, second by Mr. Heisel. All right. District 1,
Yes.
District 2,
Yes.
District 3, did we lose District 3? District 4.
Yes.
Motion passes 4-0. We lost Gordy. If anybody sees Gordy.
I see him there. Maybe he can give us a sign of some sort. This is a public broadcast, though.
Gordy, you okay, buddy? Motion passes 4-0 with Mr. Peridot MIA. Okay, this meeting is adjourned at 9:25 p.m. Y'all have a great night.
Thanks,
And I hope
everybody.
somebody finds Gordy.